today. I want to ask you, we talked about marriage even whenever I was on your podcast. So we talked about marriage and you talked about maybe waiting a little while before you got married.
Well, yes, in a way. I think it kind of depends on your own life journey. And I just believe so firmly that for those who can see me, I'm holding up a pen. If this pen doesn't belong to me, I can't give it to anybody else. But if I own this pen, then Connie, I could give it to you as a gift. So depending where you are in your own journey, if you don't yet own yourself, then you're not ready to give yourself to a spouse. So
Wow.
if you are close, if you are really, you know yourself well and you've had time to develop that self awareness, then yeah, you're ready to get married and you could actually get married pretty fast. But if you dive into a marriage before you even really know who you are, you're kind of setting yourself up for some trouble.
Wow, Lisa, that is so deep. And I've never heard anyone say it that way before. I know when I got married, I was so young and, infatuated. My husband was cute, and that's where we started with it. And I certainly wasn't a deep person. So I do believe that we go into our 20s and that kind of thing, we start to learn more and more, and there's so much we don't know. And I like to say, you don't know what you don't know until you know you don't know it. And if you pick out the wrong person, I bet that is a situation you end up in. You didn't realize about this other person because sometimes we don't even know ourselves, right?
It's so true. And I always think it's like a good rule of thumb to give it a year, 1 year, because that gives you every holiday, every season, every, experience, going through maybe anniversaries of people who have passed before us or anniversaries of celebrations that you've had in your own family, how your potential spouse deals with Christmas and, Thanksgiving and all the different things that play into a life that you are marrying into.
Oh
So if
boy,
you give it
yeah.
a full year, then you really kind of you've seen them through multiple seasons. You've seen if they're consistent or if they're just putting on a show to kind of, play into that infatuation. And you really kind of get to see consistently who is this person.
I love that because when we fall in love, we are not paying attention to anything else. I just came from a Bible school, and it happened that my little 4-year-old granddaughter is in my class, and she
Oh,
has a little boy in there that he's been infatuated with her, and she's not been at our church for like 6 or 7 months. And she came to Bible school today, and he saw her,
oh,
and he made sure he was in my group for the day. And he had his arm around her. He was like,
wait a
honestly, he
second.
was
How old?
all over her the whole time. Four,
4 years old? Wow.
four. So anyway, they hung together the whole time, and I was thinking, well, I know what his love language is. It's got to be touch.
Touch. Exactly right. Oh my gosh.
But
What you mentioned is a really good point too, because we are, it's true. The phrase is true that we're blinded by love, and we are.
Mhm.
So one of the other tips I would tell all your listeners is if your friends and family have caution or concern or issue with
Mm,
someone you're dating, that's a good thing to listen to because guess what? They're not blinded by love. They're looking at
mhm.
things really objectively. So as much as we hate it because we want to be able to make our own decisions, we don't want our parents, directing our path and all of that. And I get that completely, but it's worth stopping to consider. If my parents or my best friend is like, "Why are you dating that guy?" or why do you still have that girl in your life? If those kinds of things are popping up, it's probably worth pausing and just listening to it.
I like
Especially,
to call that a red flag.
yes, I was going to say that. I was going to say,
Mhm.
usually red flags show up way ahead of time. And
Mhm.
it's just because we are either too busy or too infatuated to stop and pay attention. So if you're going to marry this person and spend your life with them, I mean, this isn't about just enjoying a wedding. This is about creating a life together. And I think we lose track of that as well. So if you're going to create a life together with this person, it's not a bad thing to pause for a month or two, push the wedding off 6 months. Give yourself time to make sure 6 months in the course of a 60, 50, 40-year marriage, not a
Mhm.
big deal. But getting married to the wrong person is a prison sentence. I will tell you, when
Mm.
I married really late, I mean, relatively speaking, and I remember just praying on my knees and crying because I so desperately wanted to be married. I so desperately wanted to have kids, and I didn't know if I would even get married before I was able to still have kids. So I remember praying about that, but my secondary prayer was always, Lord, I would rather be single for the rest of my life than be married to the wrong person. And I had a confidence about that, so sure that I just knew that, okay, Lord, if your will is for me to be single for the rest of my life, then I can just pour into you. And that's beautiful. I can just lean into my faith, even though I had a desperate desire to be married. But I didn't want to be married to the wrong person. My parents divorced when I was 3. I
Mm.
never saw a good example of a marriage, and they did not get along too well. They did not get along too well. So I didn't want to replicate that. I wanted, if I was going to be married ever, I was going to go to my wedding. I was going to walk down that aisle with 100% confidence that I was doing the right thing. And that was my benchmark. That was my litmus test. If I didn't have 100% confidence, if I had any little not sure in my gut, I wouldn't do it.
Well, Lisa, I think that goes back to the thing that in all sorts of things in life, we get too focused on one particular thing. And it could be something good in our marriage. And we don't see anything else. Or sometimes we get focused on stuff that's bad in our marriage that irritates us, bothers us. They do it different than us. And the next thing we know, we're reacting and we ourselves are not acting loving because we're so irritated with the other person. And so taking that year, like you talked about, gives you more of a chance to see that person in all different lights,